Hello, hello, testing check 1, 2. How are we sounding? All right, we are live now, if I'm not mistaken. What's up, Janef? How are you doing? Good to see you. I think your song is going to be the first one up, so I'm glad you're here. You're one of the songs from last week, unless you want to submit a new song, in which case you're welcome to do that as well. So hello and welcome to the Friday feedback stream. Those of you who are watching currently now in chat, as well as people who might be watching the video later on. This is something I do pretty much every Friday, provided there's no scheduling conflicts, where people can just send me their tracks and I will listen to them on stream and we will talk about them and I'll give you feedback and chat will give you feedback, and it's a great time. It's a great way to learn about music stuff, and it's a lot of fun to do just in general. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be tossing the link to the spreadsheet in the chat, and I'm going to pin that up to the top of chat. And that way, if you are just now joining us or later on are joining us, you can, did that pin work? Yeah, it did. You can put a link to wherever I can stream your song that you want me to listen to. I basically go chronologically top to bottom, and go through each one at a time, listen to it, and then we'll talk about it. And that's kind of the idea. A couple general ground rules and things I like to go over every week, just so everybody kind of knows what's up. I have a few guidelines. They're not like hard set rules, but they're things that I recommend if you're going to be sending me a track. Number one, ideally original tracks, so no remixes or anything like that, for two reasons. Number one, I don't want to get copyright strikes, so I have to deal with that stuff if you're doing a remix of something. And number two, if I don't know the song that you're remixing, it's really hard for me to tell what is the remix, what's part of the remix, and what's you. And so it just makes my life a lot easier if I get original tracks. On top of that, I would prefer works in progress. I think you can definitely send me songs that are basically done if you would like, things that are already released. But if they're already released and out in the world, you're not going to go back and change them most likely. So I'd like my advice to be something you can act on when it comes to doing the track and all that kind of stuff. Other than that, if you are posting a track for feedback, I would highly encourage you, semi-require you to give feedback to other people. I think that makes it fair, and that way, when it comes to your turn, you have lots of people who are giving you feedback, not just me, and then you can participate and create a kind of dialogue in chat in terms of different people helping each other out. On top of that, it's good or I liked it don't really count as feedback unless you follow it up with why. So it can be cool if somebody's like, hey, that was a really cool track, I really liked it, but that doesn't help you grow as a producer, doesn't help you become a better artist. So if you let them know specifically why you thought it was good or what you thought worked or what you thought didn't work, if this was your track, what would you do? What would you do to it? That kind of stuff is really helpful info for people who are working on their tracks. Other than that, please only post one song at a time. Sometimes I will have time at the end of the stream to do multiples of people, multiple songs from one person, but only one at a time, and that way I can get through everybody's and make sure everybody at least gets one song listened to and gotten some feedback on. And lastly, if you can't make it to the stream live and say you want to still have a track and you're feeling stuck on it, the spreadsheet that I linked where you can put your tracks is in the Discord channel. So if you want to join the Discord channel, you can check that out, and then you can have access to that spreadsheet basically whenever you want, and that way the next Friday it'll already be on the list. It also puts you at the top of the list, so if you want your song listened to early on in the stream, you can submit it early by going through the Discord. You can also always watch these videos later on, because all this stuff gets posted to the channel, so you can always check that out later. Sweet. So that's the basic idea. And we got a couple tracks from last week that we didn't get around to, so I'm going to start with those. But if you are just now joining us or you would like to send me a track, you will not have to wait very long because it's still very early in the stream. So Janef, I think you're still out there. We're going to start with one of your tracks from last week that you wanted me to listen to. All right, so here's the track, and I'm going to have to do a quick little sound check on this. Let me make sure you can hear this. Looks good.
I wanna take you out, take you out. 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 Naomba nikupeleke Mombasa, upate upepo wa bahari. Ama Tanzania, vacation kule Zanzibari. Ama kwako mimi nimenasa, nimetulia ile ngangari. Karibu Kebaroti, nyumbani wilaya ya Migori. Mama akone, akone. Ndani ya moyo wangu ni wewe tu, ni wewe tu. I wanna take you out, take you out. 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 Ni wewe tu. Umeziba ufa kuta moyo wangu, sina wasiwasi. Rotuba kwenye shamba langu, upendo unachipua kwa kasi. A lips dena, a tam tam, ukinikisi. A message, za ham ham, ukinimiss. Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Princess in my kingdom, cool and the humble. You give me love, you give me everything. Oh baby, oh baby. Aroha yangu, ibebe, juju. Akifuani, udeke, ndandohu. I wanna take you out, take you out. 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 Mwanamke wa ndoto zangu ni wewe, mrithi wa mama yangu ni wewe. So cute, cute, a beautiful, my queen, my queen. So cute, cute, a beautiful, my queen. I wanna take you out, take you out. I wanna take you out, take you out. I wanna take you out, take you out. I wanna take you out, take you out.
Nice. Janef, that's a super dope track. I feel like one of the things I'm noticing a lot in the tracks you've been submitting is that they've all been really clean. They all just like sound really clean, really smooth, which I think is like a really nice aesthetic for this dot music. So I'm really digging that. A lot of the feedback I have is going to be pretty minor and pretty kind of like nitpicky. So don't stress too much about it because I think it's sounding pretty polished. So first off, I think your vocal processing is really solid. I think you've got a really good sense of using reverbs and delays on different words and different parts of phrases to create this kind of like very nice modern pop music kind of vibe, which is great. I think that for the most part, you could dial back the delays by like 10%, and I think that would be the sweet spot. I think right now, just like when you listen to all these vocals,
I wanna take you out, take you out. I wanna take you out.
there's just like a lot of things kind of like echoing in the background, which I like. I love the things you have echoing in the background, but a tiny bit less on the dry wet on some of the delays, and maybe a little bit like 5 to 10% less on the reverbs too. And I think that'll be the sweet spot. But I think you're so close to having like perfect vocal processing here. Other than that, your percussion sounds great. The bass sounds great. One thing I did notice, and I'm not sure why this was happening.
I wanna take you out. A lips in a tam tam.
During this section specifically, like starting here, there's a little bit of white noise in the background. It's like really subtle, and I didn't notice it over here, and I didn't notice it over here. It's in the section that starts around on like 135. And then you can hear there's like I don't know if you can hear it through YouTube, but there's like a tiny bit of white noise. And it's super subtle, and I think most people probably won't even notice it. But because all of the rest of the production is so super, super clean, it stood out to me as maybe something you don't want to be in there. So maybe figure out what's causing that white noise. It's like a really quiet, high pitch white noise kind of thing. And by the time you get over here, it's gone. So it's like just in this area. So I'm not sure what's doing that. Other than that, I feel like the weakest link on this track is the melodic part, especially towards the end here. You have this, it sounds kind of like a guitar. It's like a little stringed kind of instrument. It's going I think the notes of the melody there are pretty good, but the sound design of that sounds a little weird to me. And I'm not sure if that's a sample. To me, it sounds like a physical modeling synthesizer you're using. You're using something like tension to do that kind of sound. And so it sounds like a fake guitar to me. It might be a real guitar, and maybe that's just the way it sounds and the way it's processed. But it sounds a little bit synthetic, and I don't think that works considering how rich and organic all the rest of the year sound. So I think the notes on that sound are fine, but maybe swap up the instrument that you're using for that sound, or if it's a sample, maybe process it a little differently, because I think it stood out to me as just not kind of fitting in with everything else that's in there. Other than that, arrangement-wise, I feel like you could have a little bit longer of an intro. You could kind of play around with this space. You kind of just jump right into the vocals.
I wanna take you out, take you out.
Yeah, I think you could play with like this section, this like first couple bars here, maybe make this a tiny bit longer and really kind of explore some of like those guitar-y, stringy sounds you're using, and that could be kind of cool. And then same thing for the ending. Maybe have even just like 4 bars of like a little bit of an outro. That way, like I like the just kind of ending and it just ends. But I think maybe having a little bit of guitar in there to help kind of like flesh out the ending could be a nice way to end it. That one's pretty optional. That's kind of like personal taste more than anything else. If you want to do that, go for it. But yeah, overall, really solid track. I think the thing that bothered me the most was the white noise in this middle section here. But other than that, I think it's sounding really good. So hopefully that is useful and helpful information to you. And I think overall the master, like both the mix and the master sound really solid. Everything sounded pretty polished to me. All right, we got another track from last week. So also, if anybody is just joining us and would like to submit a track, there is a link that is pinned up at the top of chat. Follow that to the spreadsheet, and then just toss in the link to wherever you want me to stream from. Pull this up. This is another track from Vlad, who was here last week. This part's sick. I like this part. What's up, Vlad? Just in time for your own track. Nice. This is a super dope track. Before I dive into it, I see we got some more viewers joining us. If you would like to send me a track, the spreadsheet is linked up at the top of chat. It's pinned up at the top of chat. Just click on that link, go to the spreadsheet, toss in a link in there, and I will get to your track in the order I get to it. So this track, super cool. I think conceptually, I'm here for it. I really like it. I think there's probably maybe 2.5 things that are kind of holding this track back. I feel like the mix sounds really clean, but I think it needs a lot more energy. I feel like, especially because you have this really long kind of reset button you hit in the middle, and you build it back up here, which is great. I love it. I think that like the amount of tension that you're creating during this section is fantastic. However, when we actually arrive at the destination, this needs to feel more impactful. And this is something that I notice a lot in like, American style EDM. You have these like really big, huge builds and these like big, huge drops. And here you're kind of doing the opposite. You're having this like really long, slow build, and then like a really minimal drop, which I think can work exceptionally well. But I think there needs to be more energy that happens here to make it really feel like it lands. And I think that part of that can be done with the mix, and part of that can be done with a little bit of sound design, or some arrangement stuff. So mix, sound design, or arrangement. Those are the 2.5 things that I think could be really helpful here. So for example, when we land in this place, it's cool, it's groovy, but it's like it doesn't really fulfill me the way I want it to. However, later on, this part does. So I think maybe as an arrangement choice, you could have this part here come in when you're trying to like deliver on that energy, and I think that could be really useful. Or you could do the opposite, where you like during this section you get rid of almost everything and make it really, really minimal, but make everything really loud, and that's where the mix part comes in. So just make it so like just the drums and like one really like low bass note or something like that that's like side chain to the kick. So I think that could be kind of cool. And then just kind of in general, some of the sound design I think is good, but I want a little bit more grit in there. I want maybe a little bit more distortion and maybe a little bit more detuning. And I'm specifically thinking about this sound. Where is it? This guy. Super cool sound. Love the glide. I love the weird like pitch motion with it. I hear what you're going for, but I think it's not quite there yet. So if it were up to me, I would probably put a pretty hefty amount of chorus on this to really widen it up and make it sound like a little bit out of tune, which I think will really help emphasize the kind of like discomfort of this song, or like create that kind of tension that sounds really good in this style music. So I think that could be really helpful. And then a little bit more distortion on it too, to really just kind of make it sound huge. So a little chorus, a little bit of distortion on this guy, and I think that'll go a long way. And I think kind of the same thing over here. A little bit more chorus and a little bit more distortion, just to again emphasize that, a little bit of like make things sound a little bit out of tune. A a little bit unsettling that I think works really well in this style music. But overall, I think the concept for the song is amazing, and I think that it sounds really cool. I just want it to sound like bigger and darker, and maybe tweak the arrangement a little bit so that when we get to this final section, it's super, super epic. Because this build and reset here, I love this. This is great. And the same thing here, that with that low end in the background, a little bit more distortion on that. And I think that'll help bring it out and make it sound like nice and rich and full. But yeah, I love what you're doing. I think the drums sound great. Sounds like a super dope track. Definitely the kind of track you want to hear in like a weird warehouse nightclub in Berlin at like 3 a.m. So I'm digging the vibe you're going for. But yeah, I think it's pretty awesome song. Anybody else in chat got any thoughts, feedback, ideas? Jeanette looks like you got some ideas. Nice. Wait, well, now we're caught up to this week, and we got another track from Jeanette. So unless somebody else put something else somewhere. Yeah, this is the last track in here for right now. So if you yeah, bigger and darker is basically my feedback. It's kind of like the basics of it. Yeah, so if people want to submit a track, the spreadsheet is linked up at the top of chat, and you can just go in there and send me your tracks. But we are basically all caught up for the most part. We got another track from Jeanette I'm going to be listening to next. But I appreciate you guys popping by and sending me tracks, because that's what makes this whole thing work. Interesting. So I think we got a lot of different options for directions you could take this. You mentioned in chat that you might toss some vocals on it, or at least some vocal chops in there. I think that could definitely work. That could definitely be a good idea. I feel like the big question mark for me, and it's a really big question mark, is that main synth part, the main synth kind of lead line that's kind of carrying the whole song. I've got mixed feelings about it. I think it adds this very kind of like, I don't know, like retro pop music kind of vibe to it, that I think doesn't necessarily match the vibe of the rest of the track. And so take this with a grain of salt. Do whatever you want to. Trust your own instincts on this. But if it were me, I would probably either de-emphasize that sound by maybe making it like part of a bridge in the song, instead of being the main thing that carries the whole thing, because that's like basically that's the main focus of attention the entire time. So for me, instead of having that play the whole time, I would have vocals here, and then have it play during this section doing its thing, and then have vocals over here, but have no synth part here and no synth part here. So basically, like, use it as the in-between of your verse and your chorus, or a chorus and a chorus, or a verse and a verse, in between the vocal parts, basically. And that way you can still have that part there, because I think it's really cool. I think it sounds really great, and it adds this nice, really interesting energy to it. But treat it like you would like a guitar solo, where it goes in between the vocal parts, and it helps kind of like carry that section from one verse to another, as opposed to just being kind of like the main kind of center of attention. Yeah. Interesting. So it's a mixture of existing songs. Yeah, and I think the rest of the instrumental works great. I think the rest of the instrumental sounds really good. Makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I like there's like a guitar part in there that you hardly really even get to notice, because that synth part is like so front and center in terms of what's happening in this track. So yeah, I think the decision of what you end up doing with that synth part is going to affect a lot of things, as well as the decision of whether you end up putting vocals on here. But if it were up to me, I would put vocals in there and then use the synth part in between each verse and chorus, essentially, is kind of how I approach it. And that way you still get it, but it's not the entire thing. Or the other option would be get rid of it entirely, and then you're just left with that instrumental, and then you can put whatever vocals you want on top of it. That's also an option. But yeah, that's kind of my take on this track. I think it's interesting as a straight up instrumental, but I think it might be more interesting as something like a instrumental for vocals. And I think you can put some really cool vocals on here, and I think it would work really well. At the very least, there should be a section of the song where there's not that synth part. Like, you get a little break from it, because it's pretty non-stop throughout the whole track. But yeah, that's a cool track. I'm curious to see where you go with it. It's interesting to hear kind of your style, like kind of like what you end up doing quite a bit in your tracks. Like, what are the patterns you have? Now that I've heard a number of your tracks, and it's cool to hear, like, especially your percussion. I think your take on percussion, I think, works really, really well for this style music. Sweet. Chat, got any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Toss them in the chat. Also, just because we're in between songs right now, if you would like to submit a track, just click on the spreadsheet that is pinned to the top of the chat, and I will get to it. On top of that, if you are enjoying the stream, you like the feedback, or you just like the concept of me giving feedback, feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment on all my videos, share it to all your friends, all that kind of YouTube stuff. It is very helpful for me. Sweet, we got another track from Vlad, and this time we got a work in progress, which is great. Damn, dude. That's also an amazing song. Pretty much every single one of your tracks, uh, you are crushing it on the vibe. Your sample selection is amazing. Like those vocal samples are just super clutch. The like horn that came in was amazing. Like you have an innate ability to just create this like really awesome vibe. I don't know what like a better word to say it, where it's like it's dark but it's groovy and everything like meshes together really really well. So for the most part, your tracks are absolutely killing it. I love them. Speaking of love, what's up, love? How you doing today? Uh, However, it's the same three things, Vlad, in your tracks that I feel like I keep on hearing. The the mix is clean, but it could be louder. I guess that's partially a mastering thing. The mix and master are very clean, but you can go harder on them and really like make everything much bigger. Your sound design also is really solid, but there's occasionally some sounds that also like are not quite as rich and full as they could be. And I think those are holding you back a little bit. And then also your arrangement, sometimes it makes sense and then sometimes it doesn't. And it's really minor things in your arrangement that are not working. Sweet. So let's go to the beginning here. So I think the beginning of a lot of your tracks, you're doing this thing that is really common in the style music where you kind of like have like a little mini build up to a thing and then you do like a big reset and then you have like another big reset. You did that in both of these tracks you played. And I think the order of operations for your intro could be switched up a little bit, and I think it would make a really big difference. So number one, some of the vocal parts that come in later, in like they come in like a minute or so into the song, start with those because those are really pretty and they entice the listener to want to listen to it more. Right now, your intro, it's cool. But if you had some of those like really atmospheric vocal parts also in here, I think it would make a big difference. The other thing you could try out, depends if you want to do this or not, is don't bring the kick in until you bring in the full beat. So if you got rid of the kick here, you'd still have all these sounds kind of swirling around. Kind of like creating this energy, and then you hold back on the kick. And now you're bringing the kick. And that way, instead of like starting with like a mini version of the beat and then just bringing in a little bit more, you're holding back on the kick drum, and then okay, now everything kind of comes in at the same time, and I think it'll feel more impactful that way. Probably won't make a huge difference, but it's like a little thing you can do that I think will help kind of the whole arrangement feel a lot better. Your shakers are too loud throughout the entire track. But like that vocal sample there, that should be in the intro. That should be like one of the very first things you hear, because that's going to help kind of tie the whole song together, I think. And then here you have this kind of like classic donkey, like donk sounding pluck bass. Sounds really good, but it needs to be bigger. Toss a saturator on it, crank it to the saturator, turn it up in the mix, just make it sound much bigger because it needs to be louder. Other than that, this part's great. Love these vocal parts, amazing. This part's great. This part's dope. The whole thing is like really dope. It's just making sure you can get from one section to the next in a way that kind of like plays off of that anticipation and tension release thing. You're doing a pretty decent job of it now, but make sure you're being really thoughtful about like, okay, which sounds enter when, and I think that'll help out quite a bit. I noticed it more during the intro. Now that we're like halfway through, I think it's pretty solid in that regard. But just something I think you should be thinking about a lot when you're putting together your songs is, how do I progress from one idea to um, one idea to the next in a way that makes sense and makes the listener excited to hear what's about to happen. And so here there's these kind of like burp, burp, burp horns. Those should be way louder. Those should be huge in the mix. And right now they're like, I can hear them, but they're not powerful enough. Love the trumpet. Trumpet's amazing in this. This is like, the trumpet is perfect. Also, your kick needs to be beefier. Just layer that kick up with another kick. You also do a thing where you do like the high pass kick. Right here. Must be later on. So the high pass kick here, I know this is a really common thing to do. I'm not in love just conceptually with the high pass kick, where you're just getting that like little bit of the mids and the highs of the kick. I would either just go with the full kick or not the kick at all. That may be more of a personal preference. I might just be biased against the high pass kick, but I would rather just hear the full thing or no kick whatsoever. I guess it works okay here. Yeah, same thing here. The mix here is good. I mean, the shaker is obviously way too loud, but I feel like if the mix was a little bit tighter, and I could hear the big sounds, if I could hear the big sounds a little bit more, then that will make the track perfect, basically. Yeah, sorry, Vlad, if I went a little bit fast there. Just let me know if you want me to repeat anything. But basically, the arrangement is good, but could be a tiny bit better, I think, just by laying out the progression of ideas in a way that really makes sense and really kind of creates this kind of tension and release thing that you're already going for, especially during the first minute or so. Other than that, the mix also is like really close to being perfect, but it's not quite there, and that little bit is holding it back. So just make sure sounds that need to be big are really, really loud, and the sounds that don't need to be big can be pretty quiet. And that I think will make a big difference on your mix. Those are really the two big things. And let me know if you want me to clarify any of that stuff. But hopefully that makes sense. But again, I love this track. I think it's a great track. I think all the elements are there. And just little minor tweaks here and there to some of the sound design and some of the mix and a little bit of the arrangement. And I think you've got a really awesome track here. Let me listen to the end again and see if there's anything else, but I think it's... Yeah, here when I'm listening to this, all I'm hearing is shaker. And turn that shaker way, way down. And for example, in here, there's this kind of like screeching synth sound. That's kind of like, I don't know how to do it. That could be a lot quieter too, I think. And that sound, that's that computer sound just in there, which is great. Yeah, bigger kick, less shaker, and then a lot of your like big impact sounds need to be louder. But yeah, this is a really solid track. I really enjoyed listening to it. Like I said, you've been crushing it stylistically. It's just taking the last little tiny minor details in there and tweaking them and making them perfect. Sweet. Anybody else in chat got any other thoughts, feedback, comments, ideas, questions? As of right now, we are all caught up on the spreadsheet. Oh no, Love just tossed one in there. So we got another track. But for those of you who may be just joining us, if you would like to send me a track, you can click on the link that is pinned up at the top of chat. Toss it in there. Toss your link to your song in there, and I will be able to listen to it right after this next one. Yeah, Vlad, I'm not joking when I say that, like, I love your style. The style is great. It's just the little tiny details that need to be fixed. And style is usually the hardest part. All right. So we got a track from Love. And again, anybody wants to send me a track, toss it in the spreadsheet below. Janef, let's hold off on sending me another track for right now, since we've already gotten 2 of yours today, if in case more people show up. But most likely, yes, we will have time to get into another one of your tracks.
Why can't you stay when I'm the one who should run away?
Nice. I might have to listen to that first like 30 seconds one more time.
Why can't you stay when I'm the one who should run away?
Nice. Yeah, this is a super interesting direction for you. I was totally expecting there to be like big 808s, like when this section happened. Yeah, I think it's a really cool interpretation on like having a much more acoustic style drumming setup. I don't know if you did this in Contact or you used a different plugin or you actually just took somebody drumming or you're drumming. But I like it. It gives it a much more kind of like organic feel to it, which is really nice. One of the things that I like to do when doing these kinds of drums is purposely overcompress it. Like just crank it through a compressor a little bit more than you normally would. And you get these kind of like overdriven, overcompressed drums. And I think it can work really well for this style of music. This kind of like almost kind of like indie meets classical meets electronic music kind of thing. Like you don't want to overdo it, but you can go like pretty hard on the compressor on like the entire drum bus, and see what that gets you. Because especially when these horns come in, the drums seem weirdly far away, and they're kind of like, I'm not sure where they're supposed to be. And then once the horns go away, the kind of relationship between the drums and the vocals and the piano makes more sense. Like over here. But with the horns there, the horns are doing a lot of weird things to the mix. Not any specific compressor. Usually I like to use the glue compressor in live, partially just because of that built-in limiter with the soft clip button. So that's probably what I would use more than anything else, but you can use almost any compressor and it can work decently well for doing that kind of thing. Yeah, parallel compression could also work to get a really similar result, just so there's like, so you're like specifically purposely going for the overcompressed drum sound on these kind of acoustic drums, and it can work really well. So yeah, so you said you haven't really worked on like the structure of the song yet, but if you're looking for advice on that, I would maybe have the horns by themselves first, do their big horn thing, and then have the drums come in like over here. Because right now, the relationship between the two sounds really strange because the horns are very up front and the drums are very far away, and then they settle in, and then the drums kind of end up where they're supposed to be. So maybe hold off on the drums till you get to like this part. I like the little guitar part right here. I feel like that could be a little bit more complex. You could get a few extra notes in there. I feel like note flourishes or something, and I think that could be really nice. Right now, it just seems like a little basic compared to like all the flourishes and organic motion that the drums are trying to do. But yeah, other than that, it seems like right now it's really kind of in sketch mode. You're kind of like just experimenting with ideas and kind of seeing where you can go with it. I would definitely like to see this developed a little bit more and kind of see where you take it in terms of like building out a bit more of an arrangement and what that ends up looking like. I feel like, do the horns come back? Do the horns play more of a central role in the song? Or are they just kind of that big impact and then they're kind of gone for a while? And then same thing with like the guitar. What's the relationship between the guitar and the piano? Are we gonna get like a guitar solo in here? Yeah, a lot of cool potential here, and I like what you're doing. And the vocals sound great. I don't really have any feedback on the vocals. I think that they could probably also be compressed a little bit more, and I wouldn't mind that. Same thing with over here. So you think about making the horns the bridge section or the final act type thing for it? Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah, using the guitar and the piano to kind of carry the instrumental part of the song, and then you kind of build up and have this big epic horn crescendo thing. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, seems like you got a cool set of ideas going, and they just need to be fleshed out some more, and see where you take them. But I think there's a lot of potential in this kind of track, and I like that it's different for you. I like that's something that's a little bit off the beaten path for you. It almost has a kind of almost kind of like a post rock kind of vibe to it. Yeah, it's like weirdly, it's like indie, post-rock, something else in there. I don't know. But sweet, yeah. Thanks for sharing that track. I really like it when people share tracks that um, are like early stages, and then you really get a sense of like, okay, it's going to start in one place, and then hopefully we can see this later on and kind of see how it evolves later on. A lot of times people only want to share finished products because they don't want to like share something that's still not finished, because it can be scary to share stuff when it's not finished. Sweet. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And then I think we got another track in there. So we got another one from Vlad. I want to give a minute or so. So if there's anybody else out there who has not shared a track yet, who's sitting in chat or just watching, if you would like to send me a track, just follow the link up at the top of chat, and you can toss a link in there, and then we'll listen to it basically right away. On top of that, if you are enjoying the stream, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe button, any of the buttons that are out there in YouTube. But as always, I really appreciate you guys coming out here and sharing your tracks. That's what makes this whole Friday stream interesting and fun, is actually having tracks to listen to. All right. So yeah, I guess we were all caught up. So I guess we can keep doing more tracks from people who keep giving me the tracks. So Janef, if you want to toss another one in there, you are welcome to, because it looks like Vlad added another one. How's everybody doing today, tonight, morning, whatever time, wherever it is you guys are? Hopefully everybody had a good week, made some music. All right, pulling up another track. yeah, no worries, Janef. This is something I've done for a long time, is just hang out and talk about music, which I think is it's a skill set in itself. Also, I'd like to point out that the sample pack song challenge for this month is due next week. I have not started mine yet, and so I need to get on that. But basically, if you guys don't know, every month for the last month, basically, we have been doing a sample pack challenge where people can download samples and then make a song using those samples. And then you send it back to me. And next week, the end of each month, the last Friday of each month, is it next week? Is that really when it's due? Or is it 2 weeks out? Yeah, next week. Oh God, this month went by very fast. Next week, next Friday, during this exact stream, we'll be focusing on primarily taking a listen to the sample pack challenge. So if you would like to participate, you can either join the Discord, and there was links to the sample pack in the Discord, or early in the month, or each month, I post a video called Sample Pack Challenge number 1 or number 2. We're on number 2 right now. Just click on that video. I'll give you a little rundown of all the details in the video, and you can download it in the description of that video. Thanks, Vlad. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm trying my best to grow my audience as well. If you guys want to help me out in support of that, that's super appreciated. All the the YouTube stuff, commenting on videos, sharing stuff. Having other people share my stuff on social media is actually probably one of the most useful ways for me right now, just to help kind of spread the word about the channel. So if you guys want to do that, I would appreciate it. But let me know if you guys have any questions about the sample pack challenge. Said I always like end up doing it very last minute, but I will also be participating myself. Cool. So we got another track from Vlad here, and we'll just keep on. If anybody wants to submit another track, even if they've already gone this week, go ahead and just toss it in the spreadsheet. It sounds great so far. Vlad, what part of Russia are you from?
Rewind. Rewind. Giving it time. Giving the sound. Rewind.
Nope. I lost audio. I haven't. Weird. Stop playing. You have to still hear me talking, right? Let me try closing this and reopening it. Weird. Not sure what happened.
Giving it time. Giving the sound. Rewind. 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 Giving it time. Dealing with fight. Giving the sound. Rewind. Rewind. Giving it time. Dealing with fight. Giving the sound. Rewind. 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 Giving
Dope. Sounds really good. I think this actually sounds amongst the most polished of the tracks that you've sent me. Some of the issues that I was talking about with your earlier tracks of the sound design and the mix not being perfect, here it sounded really close. The big bass sounds were as big as I wanted them to be. The vocal sample was spot on, really good. It's like it had this really kind of like old school classic 80s house vocal kind of vibe to it, but the rest of the track had this like darker techno-esque kind of vibe, and the contrast between the two I think actually worked really well, and made it really interesting. So I like that quite a bit. I think your drums sounded really solid throughout the whole track. So that bass line there reminds me a lot of, there's a track, I think it's by Ivy Lab, called Cake, and there's an EPROM remix of it. It reminds me of the bass line from that track, which is a very different style of music, but it kind of has a similar kind of thing going on. Let me see if I can find it. Let me, that's the Shades remix. No, it's a different one. There's a song by Shades or EPROM that has a really similar bass line to it, to this. I'll see if I can find it some other time and let you know what it is. But I can like... You're also doing this really interesting thing here where you have two bass lines going on at the same time. You have the long, consistent bass line, and then you have the pluck bass line. Normally that doesn't work, and here I feel like it does. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't bother me that there's two different bass lines going on. I feel like they work together and they complement each other, and they kind of represent different musical stylistic choices happening simultaneously, and I think that actually works. I think the only way you can make this track better is to toss some trumpet on there, and then I think you're pretty much good to go. I think that will be the icing on the cake. Oh, also, right at about 3.5 minutes, I want there to be an extra, like a faster hi-hat that comes in. Right here. Right at 3:36, I want there to be like a 16th note hi-hat that comes in, just to kind of like bring up the energy a little bit more. It's like a really, really specific piece of advice, but I think that would be helpful. But yeah, I honestly don't have a lot of critical feedback here. There's not much more you really need to do to it. Maybe a little bit of polishing here and there. You did the thing again where you did the high pass kick to start off with. So this right here, it's not that big of a deal because it's just like the intro for the song. But again, with the high pass kick, geez, either give me the kick or don't give me the kick. I don't necessarily want the high pass kick, but if you like the high pass kick, keep it. What's up, Tanny? How are you doing this evening? Or whatever time it is, wherever you're from? But yeah, not a lot of critical feedback here. Sounds really awesome. All right, so we got a couple other tracks from people that have already sent tracks, but Tanny has not sent one yet. So I'm gonna jump over to Tanny's, and that's just kind of how I'm gonna run it from now on. So Janef and Love, I see you have other tracks in there, but I'm gonna prioritize people who have not shared one yet today, if that's all right with you guys. I'm not trying to play favorites here, but I just want to make sure everybody who is joining us later on gets feedback on a track. Well, welcome to the stream, Tanny.
Whoa, keep it up, Gavin.
Keep it up at 50. Why you fucking with me? Rubbish by my side, says she never wants to leave me. Don't know what she's thinking. Purple lean, I'm drinking. Getting way too high. Lean purple sky. Keep it up at 50. Why you fucking with me? Rubbish by my side, says she never wants to leave me. Don't know what she's thinking. Purple lean, I'm drinking. Getting way too high. Lean purple sky. Pour out your heart, girl, tell me how you feel. Put it in my double cup, say that knows the deal. Yeah, he knows, and I know that's real. Tell me how you feel before it's too late. He'll be too late, make my heart ache. Baby girl, all you do is make my heart break. And it's funny how you do that thing, make me feel like nothing. Why'd you think I'd do these pills in the first place? Girl, please get out of my head. I know you want me dead, so leave me alone now, leave me alone. Girl, just leave me alone. My demons, they're gorgeous, but they like to hide from me in the devil's fortress. But it's too late, they took my soul. Now I'm all alone, on my own. Now my heart's hurting, devil's potion's working. He put it in my cup, in my lean, now I'm slurping. But I know one thing that the devil doesn't know. I kick him on my mind when I'm high, that's for sure. That's for sure, yeah.
Nice. So Tanny, I'm assuming that that is you singing, and is the instrumental, did you make the instrumental, or is that just like a backing track instrumental you grabbed? It looks like I'm having some like weird connection stuff, so YouTube's giving me warnings. But I think the biggest piece of feedback I have for you is your vocals are way over processed. Yeah, so it seems like there's either you have two vocal layers going on, or you have a like pretty major delay on the vocal. Tone that way down. In fact, pretty much all of the effects you have in your vocals, tone all of them way back. I think that a lot of times when it comes to vocal processing, less is more, especially when people are talking fast, when you're doing this kind of like rapping and singing with like slower singing vocals, you can get away with more of those reverbs and more of those delays. But when you're kind of like rapping, adding a delay there means that I'm hearing the second time you say the words as you're saying other words, and they're overlapping and they're conflicting, and it makes it so my brain can't focus on multiple words being said at the same time. So keep the delay for specific words, and like specific words at like the end of a phrase that you want to emphasize. But other than that, tone those delays way back. And I think that will make the whole thing much clearer and much more easy to understand, and will benefit the song significantly. Let me listen to the vocals again real quick.